Grace and peace to you, everyone, from God our Father, through the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm recording this as a response to the call where I'm accused of many sins. I will tell you my side of everything, and you can make your own judgment about this issue. So at the beginning of the call, notice that Luke is leading everything. Where is his humility? He is still being the leader and teacher and doing most of the talking the entire call. I wasn't talking very much, especially at the beginning, because I suspected something evil was afoot. Because earlier that day, it was in the morning, I was trying to access the website. I get on there and add quotes and do things sometimes. And I was trying to add a couple quotes, and I was logging in, and it was telling me that my account didn't exist anymore. So I messaged Nico. He made the website, and he knows how everything works. And I asked him about it, and see if he could fix the problem. And he made my account again, and he said, "I'm not sure if I should tell you this, Christian, but Luke is the one that deleted your account on the website." And so I was very suspicious, and this did not seem like a good sign. And then later that day, I got on the Discord and saw that I could no longer access the newcomer vetting or the staff chat, that had been removed from those, which again made me suspicious, and it seemed like maybe Luke was up to something that was not good. And so I came into the call very suspicious, and I wasn't sure exactly what was happening. And then Luke says that I and the devil put him in a bad situation to have to correct me and rebuke my sins while he was in penitence. But all of these things that he accuses me of happened months or years before Luke ever confessed his sins and was in penance. So he had plenty of time to rebuke me before he was in penitence. This is a false thing to say. He accused me of exploiting catechumens. I have never exploited any catechumens or any person for any reason. I have already spoken to Robert and Nathan, and they have no sins against me, and they don't think that I have wronged them in any way. I have recorded calls with them, and you can listen to those. I have asked to speak with Elisha and Ashton, but they have not responded to my messages yet. So I'm assuming that they're not going to talk to me. I don't know if that's their own choice, or if they've been told by someone not to talk to me. So how did I put Luke in an uncomfortable situation? He is the one who waited until after he confessed his sins and was in penitence to say any of these accusations against me. Luke did lie and keep his sins hidden for many years. He only confessed because he thought he might die. I will explain my proposition that I made to some of the catechumens. This proposition has never been a secret. I've never asked anyone to keep it a secret. I asked Robert and Nathan, and they both testify that I never asked them to keep it a secret, or anyone else, because I usually talked about it when they were all together. I actually told them they can tell anyone who might be interested in the offer. My wife gives testimony that I said to tell everyone about this offer. The proposition I made to some of them, that included Robert, Nathan, Ashton, Elisha, Maurice, and Xavier, was that if they loaned me $20,000 to pay my mortgage, then I would pay them back after the mortgage was paid. So it's just a loan. They let me borrow some money and I pay it back. And in return, as thanks, that they could live at my property in one of my houses for free for the rest of their lives. This would help me pay my home off more quickly and save all the money on the interest that was on my mortgage. And it would be good for the catechumens because they would be doing some good by helping a brother get out of usury, and they would get their loan back and have somewhere to live for free no matter what happened in their lives. So they wouldn't lose anything in the deal, but they would only gain. They could live there as long as they didn't practice any sin. That was the deal. If they became adulterers or murderers or, thieves or something, then they wouldn't be allowed to live on my property. But that's the only requirement. And even if they fell away from the faith, I would still pay back the loan. So it doesn't matter what happens. Any money that they put into my hands, I'm going to put it right back into their hands. It doesn't matter what happens. If they sleep with my wife, if they kill somebody, I'm still going to return their money to them. That's how a loan works. It's a win-win situation for everybody. I'm always thinking of the common good. What can be done for the good of everyone? I've never thought selfishly just for my own gain. I always want the greatest good for everyone. I was not furious at Elisha in this situation that Luke mentions, but I was annoyed, or I had a small bit of anger just from annoyance. Asking for a loan has nothing to do with asking people for money for being a teacher. These are two completely different things. If your mom comes to you and asks you to borrow $20 and she'll pay you back next week, you don't think she's asking you to pay her money to be a religious teacher. Those are two completely different things. Christ himself says lending and borrowing money is allowed, but he and his apostles do condemn anyone who receives money for teaching. I have never received money for any teaching while I have been informed of the truth. I did receive money for teaching when I was a preacher in the Church of Christ for 2 years, but I repented of this. Asking for a loan for a specific reason that you will pay back has nothing to do with receiving money for teaching. And it's voluntary. It's just an offer. No one is being forced or demanded to give any money. It's just a request, not a command. If they want to do it, they can, and if not, then that's okay. They're not interested. For the record, I have never received any money from anyone for this offer. I did ask Robert and Elisha last year to borrow some money to pay my property taxes because circumstances prevented me from having enough money at the time to pay the taxes. And then shortly after I borrowed the money, it was within 1 month, I paid them back everything that I borrowed. And many months ago, I borrowed, I think it was $1,600 from Elisha to buy a truck that was a very good deal that I had saw at the time. And the only reason I was buying the truck was because I have to drive a long distance, 160 miles to work every day. Well, I drive a lot, and I only have one car. And so, to be wise, for the good of my family, for our security, I wanted to get a second vehicle in case I ever had car trouble with my first vehicle. So, I borrowed the money, I bought the truck, and shortly after, I gave Elisha the money back that I borrowed. There is no sin in borrowing money and paying it back, no matter who you're borrowing the money from. Luke and I have both gone to very big Gentile companies and asked them for hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy houses. We have asked them if we could borrow some money, and they let us borrow some money. There's no sin in doing that. It is a good work to help people get out of debt, out of usury, and slavery. You're helping your brother get out of a bad situation. About 4 years ago, before I was married to my wife, she was in debt for her car. I think it was $15,000, I think, was how much debt was on the car. And Luke, Matthias, and I all put money in to pay the debt off. And then, after a number of, months, she paid us all back. This is just helping a fellow believer. It's just helping somebody. Sometimes family members do it for each other. Sometimes friends do it for each other. There is no sin in doing something like this. There are no requirements or traditions about only baptized people giving each other money, lending each other money. This is an unsubstantiated claim by Luke. You will never find any teaching that catechumens are not allowed to lend money to a baptized person, and then they pay it back. You may not like it personally. You may think it's unwise or foolish, but it is not a sin. There is no evil in it. So, nowhere can you prove that it's a sin in God's eyes or in the church. Again, you may have a problem with it, but you can't accuse someone that that's a sin or require anything of them for doing such a thing. If it is a sin, then somebody has to find the proof of it. Somebody has to find it in the Scriptures and in the Fathers. And I've read all the Scriptures, and I've read most of the Fathers, and there's nothing in there that would hint at such a thing. And in the call, they repeatedly make these accusations against me, and they never provide any proof from the Scriptures or the Fathers. They just state their opinion, which, it's your opinion, but what does that have to do with me? It doesn't bind me in any sin. He accuses me of wrath and greed, but I have never, in my entire life, committed any words or deeds of wrath or greed. I have only been tempted to wrath in my life, and I have never even had greedy thoughts. I have always been a generous and charitable, sharing person. I've never had any issue, hoarding things or keeping things for myself and not helping others when they need help. About the situation with Elisha, he does often misunderstand things. Anyone that knows Elisha knows that he can remember things wrong or interpret things wrong or not understand something that's said. I never told Elisha when I made this offer to him to keep it a secret, to not tell anybody. He did talk to Luke about it eventually, and he came over to my house one day to help me with some things, and he told me that he had told Luke about it and everything, and I just gave him some advice. I was slightly annoyed because I didn't want Elisha putting an unnecessary matter on Luke. I didn't want him annoying Luke with a little thing that doesn't really concern Luke. Luke's not really involved in it. It's okay if Luke knows about it. It's just, at this time, Luke had a lot of things going on. He was trying to adopt a child. He's still trying to adopt a child. I think he was dealing with the debate with Joseph, and he was doing tons and tons of calls in the server, especially with a lot of newcomers. He had a lot going on. I mean, he's got a job, he's got his family, he has all these different things happening, and it's just something that's not prudent to really ask Luke about. Now again, he can. I mean, I don't have a problem if he does. It was just some advice that I was giving Elisha to try to take as much stress off of Luke as possible. So I wasn't accusing Elisha of any sin, and I wasn't, angry at him or anything because he didn't keep a secret. I didn't have any anger as if he had betrayed my trust or anything. I just wanted Elisha to be considerate of Luke's time and focus. You know, Elisha has struggled with that in the past of knowing what to say, when to say it, and who to say it to. So, for instance, there was a situation in the past where we had just buried my son. My son died, and we had just put him in the ground. And like 30 minutes after we had put him in the ground, Elisha asked me a question. And he said, "Christian, I'm confused about something. Can I ask you about it?" And I said, "Yeah, you can ask me about it." And he said, "Luke, doesn't have anything to do with his mom anymore. But you do still, have talks and stuff with your mom. Why is that?" Well, clearly you can see this was not the right time to be talking about something like that, to ask that kind of question. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing sinful, or really even offensive about the question itself. But it's not done at the right time and to the right person. And that's all I was really saying with Luke, is just, it would be better not to even talk about it right now. He's too busy. He's got too much going on. So Elisha has been developing prudence of when to say things and who to say them to. Now again, maybe you think I'm making up this story. Maybe you think I'm lying or trying to make myself look good or something. But that is the honest truth. That's exactly my thought process. You can disagree and you can say, whatever, I think you're being weird, I think you're being like controlling or something, or whatever. You can try to read into my motives, but if you thought that I was doing something there to try to keep a secret or to be greedy or something, it would be completely inconsistent with and out of line with all of my other words, conversations, and actions throughout my entire life. So if you want to believe that, then that's okay. I guess at worst that I would be trying to keep a secret from Luke for some reason. You wouldn't really know the reason because I've never told anybody the reason. If that's the case, if I'm trying to keep this thing a secret. And then I guess you can find fault with me for that, but it's not some great sin, if that were the case. My conscience has never convicted me of being angry unjustly while I have been a Christian. It is no sin to be angry, and it is no sin if you are angry and don't commit any sins with your anger, like reviling or abusing someone in speech or being violent. It is not one of our core values to never receive any money from catechumens. I have never agreed to this belief. Everyone knows that I have received money from catechumens for rent while they have lived in my house. But we all believe and agree that you can't charge catechumens money for teaching them. I have never charged any of them money for my teaching, for my help, for my counsel, for anything that has to do with Christianity. Luke is fault-finding. He is trying to find any little thing that he can make look bad or questionable. He seems to be trying to make me look as bad as possible, which is not a loving, charitable, brotherly way to treat somebody. Luke has often called the catechumens brothers. He takes big offense with me calling catechumens brothers in the call, but he has always called the catechumens brothers. We all understand that catechumens are not full and true brothers yet because they haven't been baptized, but we do loosely refer to them as brothers because we share the same faith and they are in the womb awaiting baptism, being born. And this offer, this deal that was made, it's not just self-serving. It doesn't just help me. It is trying to do good for my family, but the catechumens actually get the most out of the deal because they get a place to live for free for their whole lives. So it isn't just self-serving. It does help the catechumens. That's what a deal is. It's advantageous for everyone involved. Luke is accusing me of all these things, like being angry at Elisha and greed, but he never asked and waited for me to explain everything. He has no interest in hearing my defense. He only wants to condemn me. Is this brotherly love? I have never tried to do anything with Elisha that I haven't done with other brothers. I have asked Elisha to help me with work, and I have asked other brothers to help me with work. I have asked Elisha to help me pay a debt through a loan, through borrowing some money from him, and I have asked other brothers the same thing. As I mentioned in the past, Luke helped me to pay off Corey's debt on her car. There's nothing wrong with that. I have said multiple times in the Sunday assembly when everyone was present that it is a good work and a good thing to help other brothers pay off their debts. No one ever disagreed or said this was an evil idea. He says I lied and never encouraged catechumens to help him pay his mortgage as well. But I have frequently, and on many occasions, encouraged the catechumens to help Luke pay his mortgage as well. I have encouraged Xavier, Robert, Elisha, Nathan, and Ashton to do that. There is no evil in suggesting that. Corey gives witness that she has heard me say to catechumens that they should help Luke pay his mortgage off. I never knew I caused Ashton to fall away from the faith. And if I did, then the proper protocol in such a case is for Ashton to come to me in private and talk to me about it so that I can resolve it between us in private. But it seems like Ashton went behind my back at some point and gave Luke an accusation against me without me ever being made aware or notified. This is not brotherly love. Brothers don't go behind each other's backs and try to give someone some dirt or an accusation against them. Corey gives witness that when Ashton left our home to return to his parents in Louisiana, he told me that I saved his life and he would be dead without me, spiritually. This is how Ashton left us. We prayed, we hugged, we were very friendly and affectionate toward each other. We never had any clue that we may have done anything to harm or stumble him in the faith. And eventually, we did learn that Ashton stopped believing in Christianity and became an atheist. And he met with us on a few different occasions, and we had very long conversations. And in none of these conversations did Ashton ever bring up that I or anyone else had treated him in a certain way or done something to him to make him leave Christianity. In every conversation, he always told us it was his thoughts, his reasoning, his meditation on the truth that led him away from Christianity. It wasn't anything that we did. So he had all these opportunities to tell me if I had done something wrong, and he never did. He just said it was his mind and his thoughts leading him away from Christianity. And eventually he came back to Christianity, and he said he came back just because he thought about it and meditated, and it made more sense to him that God exists. So I don't know if he's making something up against me, or I don't know what's going on with that. But it doesn't look true, whatever it is. I never raised any prices for rent on Ashton or anyone. They all knew what the price for rent was before they moved in, and they agreed to pay it. But landlords commonly do and often raise rent prices, so there is no sin in doing that if you do, but I have never done that personally. I allowed Ashton to rent a home that I own that is valued at $1,000 a month. That's the lowest rent value for it, and I let him rent it for $400 a month. That's a 60% discount. I really like to be generous and make good deals with people. After a while, he did ask me to lower the $400 to $300 a month, and I was angry and annoyed at him asking this, because I'd already been so generous and given him a good deal with a 60% discount. I never raged at Ashton. I was never furious with him. I was never wrathful at him or anything. But I slowly and calmly told him that this made me angry. It insulted me. And I explained the situation and why it made me angry. And he agreed with me that he would be angry too, and that he shouldn't have asked. And he apologized. I do recall saying that Luke, by his involvement in this situation, was trying to disadvantage a poor man and take food and necessities away from my family, because this was part of our income that we need to live. I don't remember saying any of those things to Ashton. I was much more merciful with Ashton because he didn't have as much knowledge and wisdom as Luke. But Luke should have known better to involve himself in someone else's business. As Peter says in 1 Peter and Paul in 1 Thessalonians, that we shouldn't meddle in other people's affairs. We should mind our own business and keep out of other people's matters or affairs. Because of things like this, it's very easy for people to be offended and insulted if you try to butt into their affairs. If I did say those things about Ashton, about trying to take money away from my family, from a poor man, and taking food and things out of my family's mouths, I don't remember ever saying that to Ashton. But if I did, I do still think those statements are true. You may disagree, you may think that's too harsh, but that's your judgment, and my judgment is different. I had already given a great deal on rent, and an attempt to take advantage of me and my generosity took place. It's very insulting to me. I did shame Luke because of his involvement in it, because he was worthy of shame. I explained this situation and all the details involved in it to 10 or more different people, and they all had the same mindset as me, that it was insulting for Ashton to ask this, to lower the rent when it was already so low, and for Luke to get involved. And they all thought it was very weird and concerning that another friend would butt into your rental business. And they all advised me to get away from Luke and not be his friend anymore. I asked a lot of different people about this. That was all of their advice, from all different ages, all different walks of life, different experiences. So many people think of this the exact same way that I do. You may not think of it that way, but every single person that I have asked about it comes to the same conclusion that I come to. There can be sin in haggling. It's not impossible to commit sin in haggling. The fathers in scriptures talk about there being danger of sin in haggling, because you can cheat people and sell things for much higher prices than what they're worth, Or you can try to haggle and get something for much lower than what it's worth and take advantage of the person selling it. Ashton never told me that he left because of anything that I did. He told me that he left because he wanted to save all of his money by living with his parents, and he wanted to help his sister. If Ashton does have grievances against me, then he needs to tell me about them. He still has not told me any problems or grievances he has against me. I've heard about them, supposedly, from Luke, but not from himself. That's not the way Christians conduct themselves. Otherwise, it's cowardly and unloving not to tell me that you have an issue with me. And it causes division to spread accusations like this without telling the party that is supposedly involved, that's supposed to be guilty. Christ says if we have anything against someone, then we should go and talk to them in private about it. If we don't do that, then we are disobeying Christ. The correct protocol also has not been followed by Ashton and all of these others who supposedly have these issues with me by coming to me in private and talking to me and trying to resolve these things. And then 2 or 3 more people being brought into the situation if it's not resolved, and then going to the whole church. That's the proper protocol. You cannot excommunicate someone for personal offenses that they have committed against someone if this protocol is not followed. Christ only says we can excommunicate someone if an offense has been brought to them in private by the offended party, and if it's not resolved, then 2 or 3 more people are brought in to try to resolve it. And if it's still not resolved and it's brought to the whole church and the issue is still not resolved, then that person can be excommunicated. But that's what you have to do, and that has not been done with any of these things. These are the rules of the church. Luke says, I was not insulted in this situation. How can you possibly say that someone was not insulted by something? You would have to read their thoughts and their heart to know such a thing. Only the person themselves can know if they were insulted. You can say that someone should not have been insulted by something, but they were still insulted, whether they should have been or not. Whether it was silly to be insulted, they were still insulted. I might as well say that Jordan was not insulted by Luke betraying her with pornography. Who am I to say such an outrageous thing? Only the person themselves can say if they were insulted. I have repeatedly said that I was insulted in this situation, and Luke has repeatedly completely denied and dismissed my feelings about the matter and just told me that no, you weren't insulted. Well, thank you for being so compassionate and charitable. You're such a good brother. He falsely accuses me of a lie of being insulted. I'm lying about being insulted. Do you see how silly this is? Do you see how he is trying to twist and manipulate and make me look like a very evil person when I am not? I got offended and insulted at something that a lot of people would be insulted by. It's not a crazy idea. It's not a crazy just thing I'm making up that I was insulted by this. Everyone I asked said they would be insulted by it. I have never had any angry outbursts with any of the catechumens. I did apologize to Luke in this situation because of the strong language I used against him had offended him, and he forgave me. So why is it being brought up again? We've already resolved this in the past. It's all been taken care of, forgiven. Why bring it up again? That's usually not a good thing to do. Usually if, you have a friend and something bad happened between you in the past, and you've mended it, you fixed it, you normally don't bring it up again. If you do bring it up again, if you repeat the matter, it usually causes some animosity, some bitterness, and some resentment in your friendship. All of these issues were resolved and brought to peace in the past. It is unjust to bring them up again and say that I'm still guilty for anything that I was already forgiven of in the past. That's called double jeopardy in the legal sense. You can't be tried for the same crime or offense twice. Once it is resolved, it is finished. It can never be brought up again. But Luke is bringing up any scrap of things in the past that he can think of to make me look as bad as possible. Most of the things he brings up aren't sins, and they have all been resolved if there was any offense taken by anyone. I agree with the Scriptures and the Fathers when it comes to the subject of slavery. The Scriptures and the Fathers have always taught that slavery is good. It's not something to be hated, it's not something to be abolished, and it's something that we can freely practice and engage in. If you oppose slavery, then you oppose the Scriptures and the Fathers. It is true that some people do make better slaves than others. Whether it's you're looking at white people and comparing them, some white people are better slaves than other white people. And whether you're looking at races, Chinese people may be better slaves at this particular thing than, African American people or South American people. Everyone knows this. It's common knowledge that various races are better at certain things than others. Many peoples throughout history have had very good reputations for being the best slaves about something, whether it's shipbuilding or farming or cattle or building buildings. There are different people who have the best reputations for that. This is a good reputation. There's nothing bad about everyone knowing that you're great at something. So there's nothing bad about a group of people being better slaves than others. That's something they're trying to find fault with me about. But this is in a people's favor and their glory. Yes, our people are really good at this. Our people are the best at this. The Scriptures are always praising and commending good slaves that are really good at their job. Doulos is the Greek word for slave, and it means a complete slave who has no freedom, and they have to obey their master in absolutely everything. Diakonos is another Greek word that means servant, and a servant has more freedom than a slave, but they're still subject, and they have to obey their master. Neither the Scriptures or the Fathers forbid anyone from having slaves or servants. A Christian can have as many as he wants of slaves or servants. There's no regulations on those. Slaves or servants can be bought at a slave market, or masters can hire servants for wages. Read the Scriptures. Many of the saints have owned slaves. Abraham, for instance, owned over 300 slaves. In the Old Testament and the New Testament, the saints have owned slaves. Complete slaves, full slaves. They're owned. They're not paid any wages. They're full slaves. Maybe you don't like slavery personally. Maybe you disagree with it. But there is no sin in slavery in God's eyes or in the church's eyes, unless a master does something evil, just like in any other relationship. A husband, he can do something evil to his wife. A friend can do something evil to his friend, and so on. But that doesn't make these relationships evil or bad or unwise. It's just sometimes people can do evil things to each other, and that's that. It doesn't mean just because a master may do something bad to one of his slaves doesn't mean slavery is evil and needs to be abolished. The Scriptures and Fathers never say such a thing. So Luke is grasping at straws just to make me look bad. Just anything he thinks people might not like to make me look bad. So, is Luke treating me like a brother that he loves, that he wants people to think well of? Some of these statements, the main one they bring up that I said was from 3 to 4 years ago. And they're bringing it up right now after Luke confesses his sins. That's convenient timing. They've waited at least 3 years to find a fault with me about this. At this exact time. That's a little odd. There's nothing wrong with slavery, but they know that most people today have a modern mindset that hates slavery, so they think it will make me look bad to most people. And that's fine. If you don't like slavery, you cannot like slavery. But you cannot say it's a sin if you're a Christian, because the Bible doesn't say that, and the fathers don't say that. And I am going to make a separate video about slavery, going over everything the scriptures and the fathers say about it, just so you can know. And as a side note, I don't know this for sure, but I do suspect it. I think I did make an entry on the Anti-Nicene Christianity website, on the dictionary, where we have all the subjects. I'm almost certain that I made a entry on slavery. And the last time I checked, it was not there. So there may be something weird going on with that. Now, he brings up a lot about me promising the catechumens living in my home for free. That is something that I considered in the past, that I thought about, but I never decided to do that, and I never promised anybody that. I never told anybody that. For sure. Before everybody moved into my house, I made it very clear to them, and we agreed on what the rent would be. Nobody thought when they were moving into my home that they were going to live there for free. Any person can make themselves another person's slave. That they find issue with me because Elisha once was talking about becoming my slave. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing you can find in the Bible or the Fathers that says you cannot make yourself somebody else's slave. Like it's a sin to do something like that. We all do this. We all become servants and slaves. We go to companies, we go to individuals, and we say, I want a job. I want to work for you. I want to be your servant, or I want to be your slave. There's nothing wrong or sinful about becoming someone's slave. And if you owe someone a debt, it's perfectly normal to become their bond slave. That's what a bond slave or a bond servant is. You owe them some kind of bond, some kind of debt, and you're working for them to pay it off, to make it right. Luke always encourages the catechumens to become hired servants. He has told them dozens of times to get jobs, which is to become hired servants. So, catechumens are allowed to be the slaves of Gentiles, but they are forbidden from being the slaves of Christians. Where is that? That's only in Luke's mind. That's not a reality. This is never forbidden in any scriptures or in any of the fathers. A Christian can hire or buy a fellow Christian or catechumen or Gentile slave. This is not forbidden. Christianity gives everybody the freedom to buy a slave of whatever choice they make. If in any way, it goes any way, it doesn't matter. A pagan can buy a Christian slave. A pagan can buy a catechumen slave. A Christian can buy a Christian slave. A Christian can buy a catechumen slave. A Christian can buy a Gentile idol-worshipping slave. You're not gonna find anything that forbids this. So This just seems like a personal preference or something that's, I guess, trying to be enforced on other people, which is not allowed. I was generous with Elisha. For one, they try to say I'm not charitable, but I was charitable with Elisha because I gave him a very low rent of $300 in a $1,000 house. I mean, you go find a landlord that'll do that for you. You go, look up online, house for rent, and let's say it's $1,500, and you see if that landlord will ever rent you that house for $500. Not going to happen. But I did it because I am charitable. I am a generous man. And I let him not pay the rent for many months. Month after month after month after month. He didn't have a job, so I said, you don't have to pay me right now. That's okay. Anyone else would have kicked him out for not paying rent. Landlords do this all the time. If their tenants, their renters, don't pay them the rent, they give them an eviction notice, and they say, I want you out of here. You're not paying your rent. I never did that. I'm patient. I've demonstrated generosity, patience, love, charity. There's nothing in this situation that makes me a bad man. I did keep a receipt of all the food they ate because they are grown men. They're men in their 20s, and they have the obligation to pay their own way. I have no obligation before God or from anyone else to feed fully able, strong-bodied working men for free. I'm actually forbidden to do that. There is no sin in requiring people to pay for food. So I'm supposed to let grown men eat as much of my food for months for free. Apparently this is something Christianity requires. I've never heard about it. I've never seen that anywhere. But I have given the catechumens free food. I haven't charged them for every single thing they've eaten. I've given them lots of free food. We've made them many, many dinners while they have lived with us. And they've come over to our house to visit and everything. We give them all kinds of free food. We give them all the leftovers and stuff to eat. Every now and then they would ask us for sugar or something, and we would give it to them. We didn't keep track of it. We didn't charge them for it. So Luke and Aramis, they've been watching, me and the catechumens for a couple of years, and they've apparently disapproved of me making them pay for their food, all this time. And they only decide to bring it up right now, at this very moment, after Luke has been revealed to be a bad man, and when I have said that I don't want him to be a teacher again. Then they bring this up. But I've never heard anything about it in the past, never even heard, a slight hint of disapproval. So they've had all these issues with me for years, and they've been pretending to have peace with me and giving me the holy kiss and sharing the Eucharist with me while they don't like all these things I'm doing. And apparently they think it's sin. They think it's greed. But this really makes it look like they have some kind of bad motive against me. That they're bringing it up right now, and they've never brought it up before. And it really doesn't matter because none of this stuff is sin. It's just like they're trying to find something that they can try to twist into being some kind of sin. There was a situation where my wife and I were offended because we wanted Luke to come live with us because we had just bought 2 houses and we could be in close fellowship with each other. And we did feel offended because when we offered for Luke to live in our second house, he didn't care at all about the idea. He dismissed it, and he just didn't really seem interested in trying to live close to each other. So it seemed like there was no love or desire for fellowship, and that's always been our greatest desire, is to have really close fellowship and intimacy with other believers. I've never asked anybody to babysit Corey, but we have asked to have more fellowship and time with each other, which is praiseworthy in the scriptures and fathers. They both say you should try to spend as much time with the saints as you can. That's really good. Luke told me that he was afraid to live with me because I always had the requirement that if anyone practiced sin, then they couldn't live with me anymore. They would have to move out and get their own place. And this whole time, Luke has been practicing sin. So it seems like he was afraid that I would find out one day that he was practicing sin and kick him out if he lived with us. That seems clear to me now. And they do fault me for working a lot in the past, which they're the only people who've ever done this. Everyone else in my entire life, hundreds and hundreds of people, have all looked up to me and praised me for how much I work, but for some reason they don't like that I'm a hardworking man. I've often worked 80 to 100 hours a week, and my wife has been lonely sometimes because I've been gone at work a lot. But there's no sin in trying to work a lot and pay off your debt. And even though I did work so much, I never missed a Sunday assembly. I was always there to assemble with the saints, no matter how much I worked. So, I wasn't neglecting, any necessities or anything. I was still reading, still studying, still praying, still talking with my wife, still meeting all of my obligations. But they want to find fault with me for something that's not a sin. Luke is talking about the situation when we wanted him to move in with us, and he's trying to frame me as a greedy man because, I did say that they would have to pay a little rent if they lived in with us, as is only fair. That's pretty much anywhere you live. You're going to contribute something to rent. And I didn't want him to pay a really high rent. I suggested some very low numbers that were much cheaper than anywhere else. So, but that was a secondary matter. I didn't want them to move in just so that we could get some rent money. I was trying to encourage them to live with us because we wanted the fellowship, and rent was just one detail in the situation. This happened years ago, and it was resolved. We came back to good terms with each other, and now it's being unjustly charged against me again when it's already been taken care of. In this situation, I did consider disfellowshipping with Luke because it didn't seem like there was any genuine Christian love where Christians want to be close to each other. It didn't seem like there was a Christian spirit that desired real, life with each other, to see each other every day, to encourage each other every day. And it didn't sit well with me, especially because Luke kept repeatedly bringing up that if he ended up practicing sin one day, that he might be kicked out. It did make me suspicious, because why would that matter to you? If you're really a Christian, and if you're not practicing any sin, why would you be really worried that someone might kick you out for practicing sin? So, the situation was very weird, the vibes that I was getting. Now, you may disagree with my thinking and think I was wrong. You may think that's too extreme, too severe, too harsh. But my wife and I, we did feel very offended that no one wanted to live close to us for fellowship. When we had the opportunity, we had every freedom, and possibility to do so. People just said, we don't really care about you. We don't really want to be close to you or spend time with you. That's, that doesn't make you feel very good. My wife has felt unloved for many years because no one wants serious in-person fellowship. Every Christian should have that desire. If people love each other, they want to be close to each other and spend time with each other. This situation where Luke was offended by me was resolved, and he forgave me, and penance was not required, because penance has never been required in the church for someone who offends another and then they reconcile, especially if it's just a minor matter between them. Penance would be required if someone refused to make an offense right, though, and if they continued to make it worse. There's no sin to tell someone that you have an offense with them, whether it's at Pascha or any other time of the year. We always have encouraged each other to tell each other if we have any offenses or something that we don't like with each other, if something's not sitting right. We've always told each other to share those concerns. So I'm being accused of seeing Luke as an obstacle that I want moved out of the way so that I can do something, I don't know, whatever it is that I'm supposedly wanting to do. And he makes this accusation with no evidence. There's no evidence that I want Luke out of my way to do something. What is it? What do I want to do? I just want to be a Christian. That's it. So this is a false accusation. But what about the reverse? Does Luke see me as an obstacle that he wants removed? Luke himself, well, let me say, I have said very clearly and strongly that I don't think Luke should ever teach again. And I may not ever allow Luke to ever teach again with me present, with my involvement, my participation. And so it's very possible that Luke might want me removed because his greatest dream is of teaching. And I am an obstacle in his path of doing that. So consider that. That's very possible. Now, Luke brings up this, that I would like to support and, house a lot of the female catechumens who want fellowship, who want to live together, and I would hire them, they would be my maidservants to do various work in my business. I don't know, he thinks that's problematic or something, but Christians have always had maidservants. Maidservants are good, and Luke himself in the past has spoken very well of maidservants and said they're a good thing. So I don't really know what his point is about that. And the whole time I've been a Christian, I've never done anything, evil or questionable with women. So it's like there's nothing there. It's just I want to help my sisters. It is true that I have gone into the women's section unannounced on Sundays. That is true. I agree. I admit to that. And I'm wrong for doing that. I'm guilty of doing that. But anytime I've ever done it, I do always look down or away, and my eyes are very weak. I don't really see things very well because my eyes are weak. And anytime I ever did it, I never really thought wrong of it. I didn't really think about it because I wasn't looking at anyone and I didn't have any lust in my heart. But Luke did bring it up to me a number of times that it's best that I announce myself, before I walk in, and I agree with him. I don't disagree with him on that. But sometimes I have forgotten through negligence to announce myself by accident. I meant to, I wanted to, I just didn't think about it in the moment. And that's neglect on my part, and I have apologized for doing that. But think about the big picture. Think about everything. Luke wants to be really upset with me about this and condemn me and everything. But so he's finding big fault with me for walking into a place where women are and not announcing myself, and I'm not looking at them, I'm not lusting at them, I'm not doing anything to them. I'm just walking in, while the entire time he is watching naked women have sex with men and masturbating. Doesn't that seem a little off? Doesn't that seem a little weird? But so just think about that a little bit. Seems a bit strange. I'm not saying I'm innocent. I'm not trying to say that what I did is okay. But I'm just saying it's not really that big a deal compared to what Luke is doing. So, but it seems to be like, stop thinking about me, put all your attention on Christian, look at all these bad things Christian has done, when they're not very bad at all compared to what Luke has done. So, and I have apologized for these instances. I never really thought they were that big a deal, but Luke and Nolan do think they're a big deal. So I have apologized for it. And so I'm not really sure what else there is about that. I don't know. I did a minor wrong and I apologize for it, but I still get condemned for it. I still get excommunicated and penance for that, even though it's just a small thing and I've apologized for it. I don't know, that seems a little strange to me. But now, I've never exploded at others angrily. He says this over and over again. I'm so wrathful and I just explode at people in anger. I never have. Many men have walked in on my wife by accident and seen her face. A lot of the different catechumens have seen my wife. Not because they were purposefully trying to see her. It was just accidents. And I've never gotten angry at any of them for that. You can ask them. Robert, Nathan, Elisha, I think maybe even Ashton. They've all walked in on my wife and they apologized to me for it. I was never angry at them. I've nothing. Ask them. I never had an issue with it. I could have been angry about it, but I understand it's an accident. You shouldn't really get upset about accidents. Now, Luke accuses me of lying when I'm trying to remember the situation with Elisha in the past, and I'm having trouble remembering exactly what was said and what was going through my mind and everything. And so I'm just trying trying to remember, and Luke immediately condemns me as a liar. Does that seem very nice? Does that seem very charitable? Like, oh yeah, hold on, let me think about it. Oh, I think it might have been. Oh, you're a liar. You're a liar. Calm down. Like, it was a while ago. There's a lot going on. It was a pretty minor, affair. I'm just trying to think about it. But so he wants to immediately condemn me as a liar. But he himself has confessed that he's been lying to all of us for many years in a big, big way about something pretty important. So, does that seem like something a good man would do? Like, I just told everybody I've been lying to everyone for years. And now you're having trouble remembering something, and I'm just going to strongly, just zealously condemn you as a liar. Where's your humility? where, like, don't you understand that makes you look like a really big hypocrite? It doesn't make you look good at all. Even if I was lying, like, you shouldn't be the one to say it. You know, let Nolan say it, let Aramis say it. I mean, you don't understand how you make yourself look. You make yourself look like a very bad person. Which I already explained the situation with Elisha. You can believe me or not believe me. So, you know, and it's perfectly reasonable to not want Luke to ever be in a leadership or teaching role ever again after his evil actions. And this is a justifiable reason to leave the fellowship. A lot of people feel this way, not just me. This isn't just my personal conscience. It is my personal conscience, but other people's consciences also feel convicted that Luke should not be a teacher or be a leader again. They don't trust him. Maybe you disagree, but you should be considerate of your other brothers' consciences, especially when it comes to a teacher, to someone they think might be a false teacher. That's a big, big deal. That's a lot bigger than eating some meat. It's kind of the most important thing in the faith. You know, who you're going to let teach. That's a really big matter. You know, they're going to be representing everybody, representing the church, representing God, everything. So he faults me for supposedly making Ashton, one catechumen, fall away. He faults me for this repeatedly, of how evil this was, when I didn't. I never made Ashton fall away from the faith. He may say I did, but he never told me. He was on perfectly good terms with me. He insulted me, and I never expressed any anger at him or anything. I told him I was angry at him, but I never raised my voice at him. I never did anything terrible to him. So if he fell away from the faith, that was his decision. And that's what he's told all of us the entire time, is he fell away from the faith because he decided to be an atheist. He decided that God did not exist for his own mental reasons. So Luke wants to fault me for that, but let's look in the mirror. How many catechumens is Luke tempting to fall away from the faith and from our group, our specific group, with the actions that he has committed? And, you know, how many catechumens is he going to attempt to fall away in the future if he teaches again? This is a big stumbling block. So, I've never even made a catechumen fall away from the faith. He accuses me of it, but it's a false accusation. But he actually is being a big stumbling block to anyone who might be stumbled by his evil example. I told them in the call, you know, that I didn't feel any guilt for these things on my conscience, the false accusations, and that I didn't think they were sins. You know, these accusations of greed and pride, making Ashton fall away from the faith, you know, trying to keep things a secret. You know, these are all false accusations, and being uncharitable and all this stuff. I don't think any of those are sins. I don't think I'm guilty of any of that. But I did agree that I would submit to their judgment, because my first instinct and desire is to always be humble, preserve unity, and believe my brothers. I have trusted them. I've had a lot of trust for them, and believe what they say. But after reflection, when the call was over, I considered everything. I considered the matter, the whole situation, and I understood that if I was to go through with doing penance, and, you know, agreeing that I was wrong for doing these things, that I don't think are sins, then I would be a hypocrite in acting I'd be a faker. And I wouldn't really have any genuine remorse because I don't think any of these things are sins. Or that if any of these wrongs that were done, that were brought up, like walking into the women's quarters, or the situation with the cow, all that stuff's already been resolved in the past. So I wouldn't really feel remorse for it because it's already been taken care of in the past. So I would just be acting, putting on a fake face for everybody, looking sad, when I'm really not. And because my wife and I don't believe these things are sins, or if they were minor sins, they've already been resolved, we would be having fellowship with people that we think have falsely accused and condemned us. So it just doesn't make sense for us to do that and put on that show, put on the act. Now, money comes up, how to be charitable and generous. Aramis is single, and I'm married with a family, and I have a lot of debt. So Aramis and I think about money quite a bit differently. I am poor and have lots of debt, so I don't have any money to be extremely generous and just be, throwing things out at people. It is praiseworthy, of course, to give money and food generously to the appropriate people, which I have given as much food as anyone wants over the years when we've had meals together, when we've been hospitable. But it is not a requirement that we have to let people have our food for free, for many, many months if they're not needy. It is just if someone wants to eat your food and you tell them beforehand that they have to pay for the food you're going to give them, and then they pay for it. That's justice. There's nothing evil in that. It's your food. You can charge money for it if you want. And if they want to pay for it, then they can pay for it. If not, they don't have to pay for it. There's no evil going on with something like that. And we're talking about large quantities of food for daily life, for many months. We're not just talking about a little snack here or there. We're talking about hundreds of pounds of food. I mean, I don't know anybody that has just given away hundreds of pounds of food to fully grown, healthy men who can work. So I don't really understand what the problem is here. They're just trying to find anything to say just to make me look bad. It's just trying to grasp a bunch of straws. Luke accuses me of almost killing his children twice. Very serious accusations. Very serious. If you want to end your friendship with somebody, accuse them of trying to kill your kids. That'll end a friendship really fast. The first instance was about a septic tank in my backyard. I did not leave the septic tank uncovered. So there's a septic tank in my backyard that I did not even know existed. I did not know it was there. I'd never seen it. No one had ever told me about it. I was at work one day and Elisha messaged me and he said that he had tripped into a pipe behind the house and it had scraped his leg, and I was confused because I didn't know it was there. I didn't understand what he was talking about. Fell into a pipe. What pipe? I never knew there was a pipe there. And so when I got home, he showed it to me and I immediately covered it. Covered it up. That's that. That was the end of the situation. So Luke is accusing me of almost killing his children, but I didn't even know there was a danger present. I didn't know that could even happen. So Luke wants to accuse me of being a hypocrite because I have corrected my wife in the past for leaving dangerous things on the floor for babies to swallow, which is not a sin. Everybody corrects other people for leaving dangerous stuff on the floor for babies. And I didn't have any wrath in the situation. It was just normal correction. You just, telling somebody, hey, be careful, don't do that again. That's really bad. That could lead to a really bad situation. But I'm a hypocrite because I didn't get angry with myself for something that I was ignorant of. How can you be angry at yourself for something that you're ignorant of? It doesn't really make sense. So he's trying to make me look bad here, but again, it doesn't work. I wish I had known about that septic tank before so that Elisha didn't get hurt. But we are ignorant of things sometimes. That's life. We don't know everything. There's stuff sometimes that slips our notice that we're not aware of, that no one's ever told us of. I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, we're not guilty if we don't know everything. He accuses me of almost killing his children because I was ignorant of a hole in my backyard. And his children never did get hurt. So it's just a possibility. So they may have. So I'm finding a big problem with you because something may have happened. I mean, okay. I mean, it sounds like you're overreacting, but if you want to find a problem with it, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, when it came to my knowledge, I fixed it. Nothing bad ever happened to your kids. I mean, Elisha fell in there and hurt himself, but he wasn't really upset about it. It was just an accident. So it really sounds like Luke is just trying to find fault with anything. Even if his children did get hurt, it would have been an accident that no one foresaw. So I don't really see. Sometimes accidents happen. That is life. But does this sound very loving? Your brother being very angry and condemning you for a hypothetical thing that may have happened, that never happened? Does it sound reasonable to accuse me of almost killing his children when I didn't know this danger existed? I didn't know it was there. And he wants to accuse me of almost killing his children. Why would I want to be friends with somebody like that? Why are you accusing me of something like that? I've never seen anybody in my life treat another person like that. Especially a friend. So, I mean, no one ever told me about this thing, that it was there, and I walked through that exact area many, many times, and I never stepped on it, or hit it, or saw it, because it was under a lot of vegetation, a lot of different plants that were obscuring it. You couldn't see it. And so, I don't know, if you want to find fault with me for that, and condemn me for it, you're a very harsh, strict person, and I don't really want anything to do with you. It's a lot harsher and stricter than I've ever been. I did apologize to Luke for the cow situation in text. For sure, I have the text. I can show you where I say I'm sorry. I did forget when we were talking in the conversation that I had said sorry in the text, and I had only remembered the part of the text where I was praising God for His protection. But here's the text, for the record. And if you want proof, I have the text saved. I can send it to you. Luke texted me the next day. This happened on a Sunday. Luke texted me on Monday. He said, I think we should have told Elisha not to tell people in the server about the incident today. I just told him not to talk about it. I don't want you to think I would do that. I'm not looking for conflict with you. He was acting imprudently. And then I responded to Luke, yes, he needs to learn prudence, talking about Elisha. I'm sorry about the incidents. There was 2 incidences. I never wanted anything like that happening at my house. Solomon has been crawling on the steps before he could walk, and he's never fallen, but accidents can always happen. because Mordecai had fallen down a couple of the steps that day. That was that incident. And then at the end of the day, there was the thing with the cow. I say, I shouldn't have allowed any kids being around the cow. She was raised by a little girl and showed in livestock shows, so she's had tons of handling by people and kids. But you just never know what animals are going to do. Thanks be to God that everything is okay. It amazes me how much God has protected us in so many ways from physical dangers and spiritual dangers. I don't know how else to explain it other than God is protecting us. There was the time everyone got arrested, but no one got any serious jail time. There was the incident with Dakota that never became a calamity. I have fallen asleep many times driving and have never been harmed or my cars. I could have died or been seriously injured at work lots of times. When Aramis has gone camping in Hawaii and everywhere else, he's never been hurt. Your mother wasn't able to harm your family. The incidents with the boys yesterday. There's so many instances of this, it's not possible to attribute to coincidence. So that was my message. In the very beginning of the message, I said, I'm sorry about the incidents. Luke responded. He said, yes, thank the Lord. I think only Kevon and Xavier heard about it, and they understand. No harm done. I'm so glad God took care of the situation with my mother. That was truly amazing. Now let me explain. The cow situation went like this. Luke, Aramis, Eli, Enoch, and I walked out to see my cow, which was hooked to a chain. I remember Eli running next to the cow, but Aramis and Luke say he walked slowly. Either way, whether he ran or walked, he went next to the cow, and the cow turned its head to see what was going on next to it. You know, it couldn't see. It knew that he walked back there, and so it wanted to see what he was doing. When she turned her head, her horn got caught in Eli's shirt. And when she turned her head back, it picked Eli up and threw him in the air. Because cows are so strong, it's really easy for them to just move stuff, especially a little kid. Then I ran to Eli, picked him up, and looked under his shirt, and there was the smallest of scratches on his stomach. I don't think his shirt was even damaged. And the cow was just standing there calmly, looking curiously. You know, it wasn't angry. When a cow is angry, it will stomp its feet, it will snort its nostrils, it will make loud noises, you know, it will move a lot, it'll be, you know, shaking and stuff. And she was just sitting there, still as could be, just looking. She wasn't angry. She wasn't trying to hurt anybody. She just accidentally did this. She never charged or had any violence or angry appearance. If a cow is trying to intentionally hurt someone, they're going to get hurt. Unless you escape it somehow, like you outrun them or get behind something, that cow's going to hurt you, if they really mean to hurt you. This was a scary event. Everyone was scared by it. It put us all in shock. And it was really hard to say anything because it was so dramatic. I think I only said, thank God he is okay. I was too shocked to really think straight. I don't remember perfectly after because I was in shock, but my wife did tell both Jordan and Luke sorry about it right after it happened in person. And I definitely told Luke sorry in text if I didn't in person. Again, I don't remember if I did in person or not. I was just shocked and out of my mind. I am sorry if I didn't say sorry in person while they were there, but I was in shock. I was not thinking straight, so forgive me for not being an absolutely perfect person. Maybe I didn't handle the situation to a T, exactly the way, you wanted it in your mind. I'm sorry. I mean, a lot of times people don't. A lot of times people don't handle situations the exact perfect way that you think they should. It doesn't necessarily mean they're in some kind of sin. I'm sorry about it. I've told you I'm sorry about it many times. I don't know. I guess you're just not going to be satisfied until I fall on my knees or something. My wife says, looking back at the situation about the cow with Solomon getting scratched, so this was a previous event. My son Solomon had gotten scratched by the cow accidentally. She says, I really do think I was overreacting. I never really had experience with cows, so I'm brand new to cow behavior and actions. This is the first cow I've ever owned and had personal interactions with. I only saw the end of what happened, not the whole entire circumstance with Solomon. But I, of course, naturally got upset and angry at the cow, but she was very calmly looking at me as if to say, Why are you angry? What did I do? She looked like she had no anger or ill intent. I remember texting or telling Jordan this. We set her loose, eventually, for circumstances, and we have been around her and walked by her, pet her, and we've even hit her on some occasions to get her to move, and she's never been angry with us or violent or tried to hit us or anything. She's a good cow. So I'm concluding from all this that the cow is not violent and not angry. I was over-exaggerating anything that may have been said due to ignorance and lack of experience. So, women, they're emotional and sometimes they over-exaggerate things, and maybe she said something to Jordan and Jordan got the wrong idea or something. But my wife understands now. She has more experience. She's been on with the cow a lot more and understands. She's just like every other cow. She's not violent or anything. If you watch cows with horns, they often hit things with their horns by accident and don't realize that their horns are going to touch something or get stuck in something. Just because a cow accidentally hits or scratches someone with their horn doesn't mean they're being violent on purpose. Just like humans, we have accidents sometimes. Animals also have accidents that they never intended to happen. It's similar to when a person is carrying something really long and they have to turn and they accidentally hit it on things while they're moving, but they don't mean to. It's kind of like that. The cow moves their head and they can't tell where something's at and they hit it with their horn or they get it stuck on there. That's just normal animal behavior. But it must be remembered that this situation was an accident. Generally, people aren't horribly hated and condemned for accidents. If you're at someone's house and a swing breaks and your kid is swinging and, it breaks and then they break their arm, you don't generally blame the person who owns the swing set and condemn them for some great sin. It's just an accident. If you're at someone's house and your kid falls down their stairs, then you don't blame them. It's just an accident. Sometimes you're at a friend's house and maybe their dog or cat bites your kid. They've never bitten anyone before in the past, so you don't really blame them or find fault with them. It's just an accident. I've known many incidents where someone's horse bites someone or breaks their hand, or someone's goat breaks someone's ribs, and all kinds of other things other things that an animal can accidentally do to somebody. But in all these situations that I've ever heard about and known from friends, family, acquaintances, I've never known anyone who hates and condemns the owner of the animal for the accident. I've never even heard of someone being angry at the owner for the accident. Just in a normal situation where it's just an accident that no one could foresee, everyone understands it's an accident and they move on. Sure, we could have been more careful and cautious, and I take some responsibility because it's my animal, but I don't know exactly what all of my animals are going to do. No one does. It's just a fact of life. Sometimes accidents happen with animals, and it's not really that. It's not a big, great sin. It's not something to condemn somebody for. This is just normal for me. I've been around animals my whole life. I don't know if a lot of you have never been around animals or something, but this is completely normal, regular stuff. And thankfully nothing bad even happened. I mean, generally, with an animal, something happens. I mean, a bone is broken, there's a lot of bruising, there's some bleeding, there's, big scratches, big, punctures or something. But only a very small scratch happened here, and no great injury. Now, the scriptures talk about this. And in Exodus 21, it says, "If a bull gores a man or a woman to death, then the bull shall surely be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten. But the owner of the bull shall be acquitted." So the bull gets put to death. If it killed someone, that's what the scriptures say. And I agree. If Eli was harmed in any serious way, I would have put the cow down. If Eli was killed, obviously, I would kill the cow. But Eli was not even really injured. It was just a very small scratch. So the scriptures do not require or advise putting that animal to death. That's not required. I mean, if you wanted to, you could. But it's not a sin if you don't. It's not a problem if you don't. But if the bull tended to gore in times past, and it was made known to its owner, but he did not keep it confined, and it killed a man or a woman, the bull shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. But if a sum of money is imposed on him, then he shall pay the amount imposed, so as to redeem his life. If a bull gores a son or daughter, it shall be done to him according to this ordinance. If a bull gores a male or female servant, he shall pay their lord 30 shekels of silver, and the bull shall be stoned. So even according to the law, if Eli actually died, I would not have any guilt. I would not be guilty. I would be acquitted. But there does seem to be some misunderstanding that my cow supposedly gored in the past. This is not true. There was one time when my son was feeding the cow, and she turned her head a little bit and scratched him a little with her horn. This is not goring. Goring is when a cow purposefully, intentionally tries to stab their horn into something. They're really trying to hurt and kill something. There was another time she turned her head quickly and looked at Solomon, but she just looked at him. Again, this is not goring. My wife may have over-exaggerated these instances and given the wrong idea, and she also didn't exactly see what caused the cow to do this, and the cow was calm with no anger and looked at my wife in confusion about why she was angry with her for scratching Solomon. But again, even if it were the case that my cow had gored in the past, the owner is only put to death or fined if the person gored dies. And Eli did not die. He got a small scratch. Some find fault with me and say I should have begged for forgiveness on my knees. Again, I've seen many people's animals accidentally hurt people or children, and no one has ever fallen before them on their knees and begged for forgiveness, even if it was a pretty bad injury. This would certainly be appropriate if they were severely harmed or killed. It wouldn't be wrong to beg on your knees for forgiveness in this situation, but it's certainly not required either. So, again, you can find fault with me for that if you want, but you're really just fault finding. I mean, you're just trying to make an issue out of something. Deuteronomy 19:4 says, "Now this shall be the ordinance of the manslayer who flees there, that he may live. Whoever strikes his neighbor involuntarily, not having hated him hitherto up until now, as when a man goes to the woods with his neighbor to cut timber, and his hand swings a stroke with the axe to cut down the tree, and the head slips from the handle and strikes his neighbor, that he dies. He shall flee to one of these cities and live, lest the avenger of blood, while his anger is hot, pursue the manslayer, and overtake him, because the way is long, and strike this soul, and he dies, though there was no judgment rendered that he should die, because he had not hated the victim hitherto up until now." And then Exodus 21 says, "He who strikes a man that he dies shall surely be put to death. However, if he did not willfully lie in wait, but God delivered him into his hands, I will appoint for you a place where the slayer may flee." And Numbers 35 says, "However, if anyone should shove someone unexpectedly, but not because of enmity, or throw any tool at him, but not from ambush, or is working with any stone by which that one could die, and he threw it at him unknowingly, and that one dies, but he was not his enemy, nor was he seeking to harm him, then the congregation shall judge between the manslayer and the avenger of blood based on these judgments. So the congregation shall deliver the manslayer from the avenger of blood, and the congregation shall return him to the city of refuge where he fled, and he shall live there until the high priest whom they anointed with the holy oil should die." So even the law says that if you accidentally kill another human, you are not guilty and worthy of punishment. Think about that. Even if there was some accident where I personally accidentally killed Eli, or anybody, somebody accidentally kills one of my kids, whatever it may be, the scriptures say that person is not guilty. They're not put to death. They're not punished. It's a terrible thing. Obviously, it brings a lot of sorrow. But it's not a sin. It's not something worthy of condemnation and judgment. It's accident. So they critically examine everything I have done and said over the course of many years with no charity, and try to interpret everything as me being a wrathful and greedy man. But my only motives have been the good of everyone. Nolan tries to psychologically break down what was going on in my mind when I was talking to Elisha on that occasion, but he complicates it too much. The only thing going on in my mind was the good of everyone. They don't consider any other possibilities except the worst motives of wrath and greed. They don't grant me any charity at all. They only seem interested in condemning me. They rebuke me a lot for not being overly charitable. But charity is something we do with our free will. It is not a requirement that we have to be super charitable all the time and give away tons of our stuff to our own detriment to able-bodied adults. It's praiseworthy the more generous we are, but this is left up to each Christian's judgment. Aramis says I can't have private conversations with catechumens, but Christ says that if someone has an issue, then they need to go and talk to them in private. Nowhere is there a commandment that catechumens can't talk to a Christian in private. We are starting to make man-made requirements that are not required in Christianity, like not dealing in any business deals between catechumens and Christians. This is a brand new law that has never been required in Christianity. Aramis says repeatedly that I need to not ask anyone outside of the faith about anything, but I should only care about what people in the faith think. This is the way that cults operate. Don't ever get a second opinion if you think something's weird, if you're second guessing something. Just listen to us and do whatever we tell you. Do whatever we say. Everybody out there, they have no knowledge, no wisdom. They have nothing to share with you. It's all right here. It's all us. I have always been a generous man. I have given Luke many gifts over the years, like pots and pans and skillets and so on, even recently. I have allowed the catechumens to use thousands of dollars worth of my tools and possessions, and they have damaged many of my possessions, and I've never required any of them to pay for or replace anything that they have broken or damaged, because they broke them accidentally. I'm okay with that. I'll suffer the loss. We are allowed to give gifts to people, but it is forbidden in Christianity to support able-bodied adults. Christians are allowed to and commanded to support orphans, widows, and disabled people, but we cannot support grown adults that can work for themselves. I required the catechumens to pay me for my food that they used in daily life for their own reputation, so that they could not be accused of being Christ-mongers or taking advantage of someone's kindness. But we made tons of meals for all the catechumens that were free. We have been very hospitable to all of the catechumens. The mindset here seems to be, in this call, that as long as you agree with us and do what we want you to do, then you can be in our fellowship. Let us control you and don't raise any issues. We know you don't want Luke to ever be a teacher again, but we don't care what you want. We don't respect or have any regard for your conscience telling you that Luke is not trustworthy to ever teach again. We want him to teach again, so get in line and stop causing trouble. Correcting people with just anger and business deals between catechumens and Christians are not forbidden by the early church. These are not wrath or greed, but now I'm being punished and judged for doing things that are not forbidden or even discouraged. These seem like manipulation and cult-like behavior. Like, we have some things we want to do, and you're kind of not going along with us, so we're going to try to control and intimidate and manipulate you to get you to do what we want you to do. Luke says no one gave him the authority to teach, so no one can prevent him from teaching. No one can ever take away his authority to teach because no one gave it to him in the first place. Well, with this logic, if you kill someone or commit adultery, then you can keep teaching in the future because no one gave you any authority to teach. So no one can take it away, right? Does that really sound right? Does it sound like God approves of something like that? Luke has also exercised authority just like bishops did. He has admitted and thrown people out of the fellowship on his own judgment. So he wants to make an excuse that he can teach because he doesn't have real authority like a bishop, but in practice, he does exercise authority over people, like a bishop. Luke told me himself to get out of the fellowship, and I'm not welcome, on his own authority on December 23rd, while he was in penance. He was currently not even in the church, and yet he feels like he has this authority to remove people from the church. I have been excommunicated by a penitent sinner. Does that look right? Does this look like justice? Fairness? Proper protocol? They're willing to let a major sinner who has scandalized everyone to teach again, and they're not concerned about anyone falling away because of a bad man being allowed to teach again. This is a major lack of wisdom. There is no love for all of those who will fall away if Luke ever teaches again. They don't care if anyone falls away if Luke teaches again. This is unloving, unwise, uncaring for the souls that will be lost by the scandal. They want to do what they want to do without thinking of how it affects others. So first, Luke faults me at one point for not telling my dad that I've been a homosexual in the past. And then he says, well, we shouldn't tell the whole world and those outside the church about our sins. Well, which is it? Is this a contradiction? You see, he's trying to make me look as bad as possible and charge me with cowardice when there's actually no cowardice in my heart. And to prove it, I did tell my dad that I was a homosexual. I've never had cowardice in my heart, but my dad has told me in the past that if he ever found out that I was a homosexual, he would kill me. So I did not want my father to be guilty of murder. Forgive me. And by the way, has anyone in our fellowship confessed all of their sins to their parents? I don't think so. Another thought. Has Luke confessed his pornography and masturbation while he's been married to his wife for all these years? Has he confessed that to his father or his mother? No. So what's the point? Why bring up the fact that I've never confessed homosexuality to my father? It doesn't matter. It's obvious that you're just trying to make me look as bad as possible by bringing up anything you can think of. When they put me on the spot in the call, and the three of them backed me in the corner, and I had to say yes to Luke teaching again or be kicked out, then I did make a conditional agreement that Luke could teach again if he proved himself trustworthy. And I don't think Luke ever will prove himself to be trustworthy. I don't know how he could. It doesn't seem possible. Some of you are worried about hearing our side of things because you think it will make you schismatics. Isn't this starting to sound like a cult? We can't listen to anyone outside. We can only listen to insiders. This is how cults operate. This is Jehovah's Witnesses. This is Mormonism. That's the way they operate. So be careful. Keep a watch out for these kinds of things. Because Luke, Nolan, and Aramis know that I have strongly stated that Luke will never teach again, it is entirely possible that they either consciously or unconsciously have formed a conspiracy against me. They are willing to continue with me if I let Luke teach again. But if I don't let Luke teach again, they don't want me in the fellowship. They have completely disregarded my conscience and want me to compromise my conscience and do something I know to be wrong. This is not brotherly love. It should be obvious to everyone that Luke does not have the Holy Spirit, nor has he been walking in his Spirit, but he has been walking in his flesh for many years. A person that can masturbate to pornography the entire time he is married to a great woman and never confess it for years, while offering and taking the Eucharist and presenting himself as a public teacher to the internet, is clearly walking in their flesh. Luke has lied to his wife, to God, and to the whole church for years. Do you still trust him? Would you trust a man who has been unfaithful to his wife? The number one person that he is supposed to be loyal and faithful to and honest with, he has completely betrayed for their whole marriage. If you trust such a man, the results will speak for themselves. My opinion is that Luke may be influenced or possessed by unclean spirits, causing him to be a slave to lust, pride, arrogance, lying, and hypocrisy. If Luke is willing, then I am willing to exorcise these spirits. He has been walking in lust all of these years, and his father Michael, his brother Matthias, his mother Marcy, Aramis, I, and many others have all witnessed Luke's pride and arrogance over the years that we've known him. When Luke and his dad and brother were together, it was constant arguments, and no one could ever admit that they were wrong about anything. They all made every argument in defense of themselves they could think of, and were very slow to admit or never admitted that they were wrong when others had offenses against them. Once, the arguments got so frequent and ridiculous that Nolan stormed out of the house and didn't want anything to do with them anymore. I have had offenses with Luke myself in the past, and the same has happened where he has to argue, defend himself, and tries to turn it back on you, so actually you're the one who is in the wrong, and not him. This is what prideful and arrogant people do. I have witnessed many times over the years, including on December 23rd, where someone tried to tell Luke he is wrong, or that he has a moral flaw, and he reacts with anger and dismissiveness. He refuses to hear it. He's fine if he confesses and admits his own wrong, but if someone else points out his wrong, it's anger and denial and endless arguments. His pride has reached such a height that he has created baseless and false accusations against a brother who has done good to him and loved him for years, because this brother opposed him in his wrong deeds and stands in the way of his greatest dream of teaching people. But he isn't worthy to teach anyone. Christianity requires purity of soul and purity of flesh. A Christian must believe the truth and not believe falsehood, and this is purity of soul. A Christian is also required to have the highest level of moral virtue, purity, and integrity. Luke has failed miserably to attain the morality a Christian must have. He hasn't even reached the level of purity and righteousness that is required of a catechumen. And he has had the pride to make himself a teacher, and still wants to be a teacher, even though he has proven to the whole world that he is never fit to be a teacher. It is one thing to have never been a teacher and do bad things, and then over many years you become blameless and then become a teacher. It is an entirely different situation when you are full of sin and hypocrisy and teach for many years while practicing sin. This situation demands that such a person never teach again. They may have great speaking abilities and be able to teach excellently, but their moral character will never be trustworthy after they have proven themselves to be a fraud while teaching for years. After being forced out of this group, my wife and I feel a great darkness and weight removed from our shoulders. This is one reason I think unclean spirits are at work. My wife desires the fellowship and the companionship of other saints more than anyone I have ever met. But her immediate response when I told her about the accusations made against me was, "Then we can't have fellowship with these people." My wife is at peace with not having fellowship with this group after this incident, even though she gets really lonely easily and desires daily physical fellowship with others. Jordan and all the other women can testify to that. Her conscience is convicted, as well as mine, that we cannot have fellowship with people who have treated us this way, in such an uncharitable, disgraceful, disrespectful, angry, condemning, and flippant way, which are all uncalled for, undeserved, and unjust. For us to ever come back, there would have to be apologies, of course, and something would have to be done about Luke, Nolan, and Aramis all being party to bearing false testimony against a brother and condemning him unjustly. If we did ever come back, I would never trust the judgment of Luke, Nolan, and Aramis ever again. They have been unwise and unjust judges, allowing a penitent to not only participate, but even lead a council against someone who is innocent and in good standing shows a lack of wisdom and justice. And then Aramis stood by and allowed Luke to excommunicate us on his own authority while he was in penance, a thing never allowed or heard of in the church. This demonstrates lack of wisdom and justice. Some of you think it's wrong that I agreed to do penance and then changed my mind. But like I explained, it would make me a hypocrite, an actor, to go through with penitence when I don't think I'm guilty or deserving of penance. And to do so would endanger Nolan and Aramis of falsely condemning an innocent man. The Apostolic Constitutions says this: "A righteous man, unjustly slain by anyone, will be in rest with God forever. The same is true of anyone who is separated by his bishop without cause. He who casts him out as a wicked fellow when he was innocent is more furious than a murderer." On December 23rd, my wife and I went to Luke's house for the express reason of my wife saying what she thinks about this situation. Luke did give a good introduction about being careful to be peaceful and wise, but the rest of the time he was very angry and hateful looking. His appearance attitude, and the way he spoke, as well as the words he said, makes us suspicious that he may be under the influence of unclean spirits. When my wife barely started speaking, Luke continuously interrupted her angrily and said she was lying and was very rude to her repeatedly, saying that she should get out. But the whole reason for us being there was for my wife to speak and give her concerns. So my wife did leave eventually, after a few times of Luke, asking for her to get out. And Elisha and Ashton were both asked if they remembered anything about the past offenses, and neither of them could remember. That's very strange. Luke asked me if I wanted to say anything, and I said, "I love you all." And Luke said, "No, you don't," angrily, as if he knows whether or not I love everyone. And Luke told me to leave, and that I'm not welcome in the fellowship. Then I said, "May the grace and peace of God be with you all," and I left. The little that my wife did say to Luke, she said harshly, because Luke unjustly accused her husband of many evils, falsely. So she spoke to him correctly. If Luke spoke to and treated Angel the way that he treated Corey on December 23rd, I don't think Nolan would want anything to do with Luke for a long time. Luke never begged for our forgiveness for lying to us for years and giving us the holy kiss while he was full of lust and offering and receiving the Eucharist in sin, until he asks us for our forgiveness and we grant it to him. These sins are bound on him. Luke has confessed that he has been lying to all of us for many years. I have never been caught in or even confessed a single lie after becoming a Christian. Ask anyone about me, and they will tell you that I am an honest man. I have been honest many times, and it has gotten me in some trouble. But I know that if I lie, God will punish me. The choice is yours. Trust a man who has told you that he is a liar, or trust a man with no record of lying. A self-professed liar is constantly accusing me of lying, who has never been caught in a lie. If you trust the wrong one, may God have mercy on you. Just so that everyone has an accurate record, as far as I'm aware, Luke's sins are as follows. Number 1, sexual immorality, watching pornography and masturbating the entire time he has professed Christianity as an adult. Yes, there are a few windows in there where he didn't, when Aramis tied his hands, but for the most part, just practicing pornography and masturbation. Number 2, offending his wife and staining her purity and chastity by doing these things while also engaging in relations with her. His body is Jordan's property, and he has broken the debt of marriage and defiled her body. This is minor adultery. Number 3, pride and hypocrisy. Doing these things without confessing and pretending to be without sin for years, acting like an example for others to imitate while doing evil in secret, boldly rebuking and challenging others of their sins while in sin himself. Number 4, teaching others about the faith while being an impure, unholy, immoral, and hypocritical person, and so compromising all of his teaching and witness. Number 5, offering the Eucharist and taking the Eucharist without confessing while practicing a species of adultery for years. Number 6, presenting himself as a face and public defender of the faith while practicing sexual sin. This leads to the faith in the name of God being blasphemed and stumbling many people. Number 7, giving the holy kiss while practicing impurity and uncleanness for many years. Number 8, leading prayers of the congregation while practicing sin, corrupting the prayer of the people for many years. Number 9, condemning, judging, disciplining, and excommunicating Sebastian, Dakota, and Matthias for pornography, masturbation, and sexual immorality, while he himself was practicing it. Number 10, Luke has broken one of the 10 commandments. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. He has falsely accused a man of greed, wrath, and lying. Number 11, Luke has unjustly, without cause, condemned an innocent man and cut him off from God's people. He has judged an innocent man while he himself is in penance and condemned for his sins. This breaks the order and spirit of Christianity. People in penance are not allowed to judge, condemn, or discipline anyone else for their sins. My prayer is that of David. He says, "My enemies live and are become stronger than I, and those who hate me unjustly are multiplied. Those who repaid me evil for good slandered me, because I pursue righteousness, and they threw away my love as though it were a stinking corpse. Do not forsake me, O Lord. O my God, do not depart from me. Give heed to help me, O Lord of my salvation." If anyone desires to have peace with us and to walk with the Lord together, our arms are open to you. If anyone does not love the Lord Jesus Christ, let him be accursed. O Lord, come. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you. May love be with you all in Christ Jesus. Amen.